Sorensen.
I have a lunch appointment at noon. What do you think the current protocol would be for stopping the board meeting around 11:55?
Yeah,
Something like that.
I think we should be okay. We do have an executive session today, but I think we can float it to wherever it fits in. So we'll try.
Great.
We'll try and adhere to your schedule for your new meeting.
Thank you.
Unless you guys get really talky about the budget amendment or the strategic plan, we should be able to make it.
I'll work with Commissioner Williams to ensure that doesn't happen.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other adjustments to the agenda this morning? Seeing none, then we'll move on to public comment. And my guess is we only have one person signed up, David Piccioni. If you're ready, we'll take you now. If you want to come up to the podium, state your name for the record, and go ahead, and I'll start your 3 minutes.
I just, one of the things that I wanted to ask, I don't know if it's within your realm of purview, but I have some art that's flowers and leaves, and I was wondering if I send you some pictures of it, if you want to put it in the gallery, in the place out there where there used to be pictures, but now there aren't any. Anyway, the reason I make art with nature is because I think that plants, which is what I have, are almost the perfect machine for our survival. They use the power of the sun to transform carbon dioxide that's in the air and mix it with water that comes out of the ground. It doesn't even have to be clean water. The roots filter out the bad stuff, and they transform it into wood that we can use, into fruit that we can eat, into other types of edible medicines, all these things. So based on how much I value plants, I would hope that you guys as a whole understand that we depend on plant life. I have a prediction that I'm going to make. I think that there's going to be new plants evolving now that will adjust to the higher rate of carbon in the atmosphere. So they will be able to absorb a greater quantity of carbon because there is more carbon in the air than there used to be. And probably some plants will grow resistant to the herbicides if that continues. But anyway, so I guess that's pretty much it. I just wanted to say a thing for the plant people, the plant vegetation. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I don't see anyone else that's here to address the board.
Who should I send the photos of the art to?
You could probably send them to, there's a Board of County Commissioners email that comes to all of us.
Okay.
But I believe that our Deanie, that staff's.
Let me write down the email if you don't mind.
Oh, gosh.
It's LCBCC at.
What is it?
It's LCBCC.
There's two C's?
COM. Yeah, we'll get it for you. You can find it on our website.
Yeah, Deb.
If you go, we'll write it down. But anyone who's interested, email the board. There's a link on our website.
I'm not offering it any price.
I don't see anyone else that's here to address the board this morning, so I'll end public comment. We'll move on to commissioners' response to public comments and/or other issues and remonstrance. Anything from the commissioners this morning? Commissioner Lykin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think this is, I was going to wait till commissioner's business, but I think this is good timing. So I don't know if folks saw yesterday the news in Phoenix, Arizona, but there was a autonomous vehicle, and it was an Uber autonomous vehicle. Unfortunately, ended up killing a pedestrian. And this last session, the legislature actually went ahead, they moved forward on creating a task force for autonomous vehicles. And I don't know if folks knew, but the University of Oregon has actually done a significant amount of research on this already, which is pretty exciting. Well, I received notice yesterday that I have been asked to serve on the Autonomous Vehicle Task Force. And so it's I think it's going to be very exciting, and I think for not only having someone here locally, but I think with the connection with the U of O and the type of research they've already done, I think is going to be pretty neat moving forward. So I was going to wait till the commissioner's business, but I thought I'd go ahead now, being we have a fairly slow morning, and just relay that information now. But so I'm really excited. I've already sent information off to our staff, as well as Paul Thompson at MPO over at LCOG, who obviously staffs us at MPC and MPO, and Paul is really on top of this issue as well. So, most of my knowledge of autonomous vehicles is what I've read, and we know that Ohio is way ahead, I think, of most states in moving forward on this, because they're actually towards working on autonomous trucks, as in semis, which I think is pretty interesting. But this seems to be a pretty significant wave of the future, and I just wanted to share that with the board. And so it should be pretty exciting, and kind of goes in well with, I think, what we're creating here, the Silicon Shire and the sector strategy with high tech being one of those. So I just wanted to share that, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Welcome. Anybody else? So I just want to spend a minute to express my thoughts and hope for a quick recovery back to normal for those 142 employees of Bartles Farms. And, it's sad when a century-old business that's been in Lane County since 1908 closes its doors, and it's particularly impactful to not only the employees, but also even the ranching industry for the small ranchers here in Lane County as one of their outlets for selling their stock, and also just for the folks that came to enjoy their products. I understand that their bacon and sausage is to die for, and it won't be out there anymore. But it's really kind of sad to see a business like that close its doors after such a long period. But I really understand the decisions that the family had to come to eventually. And I hope for the best for the Bartell family and all of their employees. So if there's no further remonstrance, I'd like to move on to emergency business. Is there any emergency business today?
Not today.
Then we'll move to the consent calendar, which is routine items that the Board of Commissioners enacts in a single motion. No discussion on the motion, because if somebody wanted to discuss an item, it would have been pulled during adjustments for the agenda. If you want to see details on consent items, you can go to our Commissioner's agenda and just click on View Material. So do I have a motion to approve today's consent calendar? Commissioner Lyken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Lyken, seconded by Commissioner Williams to approve the consent calendar for Tuesday, March 20th, 2018. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. So that moves us on to item 6, County Administration announcements. Mr. Mokakaiski.
Mr. Chair, would it be all right if we did 6B and then do announcements after that? I had a couple of folks we wanted to introduce to the board, new employees we wanted to introduce to the board, and I'm just seeing if Sarah Means and Alex Kyler can get them here. So if you don't mind, and John and Christine are ready to go for item 6B.
Great. We'll move then to item 6B, which is Order and Resolution 1803-2001 in the matter of adopting the FY 17-18 Supplemental Budget Number 3, making, reducing, and transferring appropriations. And we have John Mosby, our Senior Management Analyst from our Budget Office.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Chair Bozovich and Commissioners. So this is the third supplemental budget for the current fiscal year. This supplemental budget is fairly routine. Full details of the changes are included in the agenda memo. Some of the more significant changes included in it are eliminating 5.04 FTE from the general fund due to the termination of the federal U.S. Marshals contract, adding 3.32 FTE in the Health and Human Services Fund to support the community health clinics, adding 5.04 FTE to the local option levy fund to support 50 additional jail beds, and adding 2.0 FTE to the solid waste fund to support recycling programs and transfer sites. If approved, the total FTE across all funds will be $1583.49, and the total budget will be $647,097,641. Within the supplemental budget, total FTE is increasing by 11.35, and total budget is increasing by $576,474. Additionally, last week during the quarterly financial report, Commissioner Sorensen asked about marijuana revenue. This supplemental budget does include additional marijuana revenue of $720,877, and this revenue was earned from January 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2017, so the prior fiscal year. And that was calculated under the old revenue formula, which was based on local jurisdiction population. At this time, I don't have any updates on future revenue or forecasts, but more in-depth information on this topic will be provided during the upcoming Budget Committee sessions, and Christine is here to answer any questions if you have some more in-depth ones. The new revenue formula for marijuana revenue is based on the number of dispensaries and the grow canopy area, just as an informational point. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
Questions for staff? Commissioner Sorensen.
Do we have a revenue per fiscal year estimate on the marijuana tax money?
Yeah, so we've currently budgeted $400,000 as ongoing revenue for the current fiscal year. I don't know what we're going to budget for 18-19, but we'll bring that up during the Budget Committee once that's ready.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. That marijuana revenue, is there restraints on how it can be spent? Do we?
Let Christine come up and answer that one.
Good morning. So no, there are not, and that money is in our general fund right now, unless something changes. They are continuing to do bills every time at the legislature. Alex Kyler has kept me updated with what they're changing, but nothing on that piece yet.
I think originally there were restraints on it, and we got a bill passed that kind of pulled some of those off, because I think originally it was supposed to only be for enforcement.
Correct.
Of the Measure 91 provisions.
Correct, and that did change. Yes.
Good. I just wanted to confirm that. Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Commissioner Lycan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'd like to move approval of order and resolution 1803-2001, the matter of adopting the FY 17-18 supplemental budget number 3, making, reducing, and transferring appropriations.
Second.
So it's been moved by Commissioner Lycan, seconded by Commissioner Williams to approve the supplemental budget number 3. Any discussion to the motion? I just want to real quick say that the ability to add 50 local jail beds that is contained in this supplemental budget, which kind of just is flying sort of under the radar publicly right now, is a huge addition to our jail capacity. And from what I understand, there's been times where we have not had to make capacity-based releases because of that additional 50 beds recently, at least as we're catching up and filling those beds. I'm sure once we get them all full, we might be back to that, but the level of risk of reoffending of the inmates we do have to capacity-based release because of those additional beds should really become much lower level offenders that we might have to capacity-based release. So this is really an important change to our budget, moving that from leased beds to the federal government to actual local beds being funded through our jail levy. So I really appreciate that. So if there's no further discussion of the motion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And we'll go back to item 6A because I see Sarah and Alex waiting in the wings.
We do. We have some special guests here today, so I want to introduce, first invite Sarah and Austin to come on up here. Sarah Means, of course, our Community and Economic Development Manager, and she'll introduce Austin, but just briefly, Austin Ramirez is our new Community and Economic Development Officer. He comes to us from Claremont, California, and is really happy, I know, to be here in Lane County. And he's going to be focused on rural economic development, and we're just really excited to have Austin on our team. So I'll turn it over to Sarah just to introduce Austin a little bit more.
Thanks, Steve. Chair Bozovich, Commissioners, good morning. It's a pleasure today to be here in front of you today to introduce to you Austin Ramirez. Just a brief comment about the search that we undertook in order to fill this position. It was really, truly a national search, very competitive. We had a lot of really highly qualified candidates, and Austin really rose to the top of all of those candidates. He has experience as a management analyst, so similar classification in a city, Steve mentioned Claremont, California, doing some similar work. So we're really pleased about that level of experience. As Steve mentioned, Austin will be focused on primarily serving our rural communities. We're going to I think do that in tandem because I think they deserve both of our attention. But I'm really excited to really have a fully staffed team at this point. Austin has been a great addition. He's been here for a little over a week, and we've not scared him away yet. He's been asked. And so we're really excited, and I just want to give Austin the opportunity to maybe say a few things as well.
Good morning, Commissioners. It's been an honor to join the Lane County team, and it's been really great making Lane County my home, and I look forward to serving all of our communities and doing what I can to help support them and enable them to thrive.
So thanks for your time this morning, and if you have any questions, we're more than happy to answer them. But you will likely see Austin in the hallways and out in your rural communities and all over the region doing good work.
Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome aboard. My district is primarily rural, and they have a lot of struggles, and so I'm very, very excited with you coming on board. I want to thank Sarah for the great job that she does in economic development with emphasis on our rural communities. So thank you and congratulations for the job. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Farr.
Thank you. You know, I have a bumper sticker I got when I was visiting University of Texas a couple of years ago. It said, "Keep Austin, Austin." Was it talking about you?
I've seen Keep Austin Weird as well.
Oh, Keep Austin Weird, right? There's that one. I wasn't going to say that.
Eugene's line.
But just an observation. Last night I was leaving after the front desk closed and later than I normally leave. And there was really nobody in any of the administrative offices, and I walked out. And there was Austin. Mm-hmm. Last hour.
Already putting in long hours. I kid you not, he came on board last Monday. I had an hour maybe with him, and I sent him to Salem to do some training with some of our partners that are located up the McKenzie River. And he was there for 2 days, long days. I got a text from him at 6 p.m. one night. He was still working. So I think the work ethic is strong with this one.
Commissioner Sorensen.
Well, I'm told that President Truman, when he became a U.S. Senator, moved to Washington, D.C. And he was there, and he says, "I can't believe I'm here with all these fantastic people. Here I am, number 100 of the U.S. Senators. I can't believe I'm here." 6 months later, I can't believe these guys are here. So I hope that's not your experience. I hope that your energy and enthusiasm that we're seeing hitting the ground running is carried forward. And I really am happy to see you here. And I really hope that some of the skills that you've put in your previous career, previous jobs in your career, will be able to translate into, meaningful improvement in the rural communities that you're supposed to be serving and helping, and seeing if we can get some some economic development and good jobs and sustainable jobs that can sustain the ups and downs of a future economy. Thanks a lot.
Commissioner Langton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so, Austin, welcome. And really, I'm very pleased that you're here and as part of the Lane County team. And if we can be of any assistance to you, please feel free at any time. And my office will be easy, so all you have to do is walk down. If you hear Led Zeppelin, Motley Crue, The Who, AC/DC, you know that's my office. So
Good to know.
all good. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and I just want to say welcome, Austin, as the other rural commissioner. We'll probably be seeing a lot of each other. But on his third day, when he was actually back in Lane County from Salem, who do I run into at the Fern Ridge Chamber of Commerce meeting but Austin? So, you know, he's definitely already out there in the rural communities, starting to connect with the business leaders. And I really appreciate that. Appreciate the skills you bring and some of the cultural skills that you're bringing to the position, as we have a growing Latino community in several of our rural communities, Junction City in particular, my district, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there in that community. So I'm looking forward to some of the work you'll get to do there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Okay, and one more introduction here this morning. I'll invite Alex Kyler and Sue Ludington up here. Sue is our new law librarian, so you may recall that Neil Miller left for Minnesota, one of those states in the Midwest. And
Yeah, they're all
they
all run together.
old, terrible. Well, anyways,
Whatever.
Alex pursued a competitive recruitment, and we're really pleased to. You know, sometimes we hear stories about employees in Lane County leaving for other counties to the north. And in this case, we stole one from Washington County, and we're really pleased to have Sue. And I've had an opportunity just to interact briefly with Sue, but a similar level of enthusiasm and passion and excitement about the great work that happens in the law library. We know that Commissioner Sorensen is going to keep things in check, as he is a regular dropper by of the law library. And so I'll turn over to Alex just to introduce Sue a little bit more.
Thank you, Steve. And Commissioners, good morning. I'm Alex Kyler, the Intergovernmental Relations Manager, and also oversee the law library operations. We were sorry to see Neil go, and we undertook 2 rounds of recruitment to fill the position. We did have competitive pools in both rounds. In our first round, we had an individual who ultimately declined to come to Lane County, and I was really delighted in the second round to find a person with the experience that Sue brings to this job. Washington County has a robust law library program. Sue is engaged with the Oregon Library Association and serves on the legislative committee, so that was this last session with a bill on law libraries. We were able to consult on that bill early on. In fact, she was the one who said, "Hey, there's a bill coming." So I was aware of it upon information that Sue gave me. And not to be outdone by Sarah, but Sue was trying to get into the building over the weekend and trying to get into the building early this morning, so we had to change her permissions to allow her to get in here and do the work that really needs to be done in the law library. So I'm just really delighted to introduce Sue to you.
Thank you, Commissioners, for welcoming me here today. I am very excited to be down here in Lane County after 5.5 years as the assistant law librarian at Washington County. It was really nice to come down here, and this library is all mine, which is a blessing and a curse, I suppose, at the same time. So there are lots of, I think a lot of work needs to be done down there. It's obvious that there hasn't been some leadership in several months now. So I think I have my work cut out for me, but I'm up to the challenge. And Mr. Sorensen has already been in the law library, and we had a great conversation, and we're looking forward to scheduling some meetings with the Lane County Bar Association. I hope to get introduced to them. The Lane County Law Library Advisory Committee, we're looking forward to getting that rejuvenated. So yes, very excited and looking forward to what's to come.
Great. Commissioner Sorensen?
So a lot of people probably think, well, law library must be some books about law. So maybe the lawyers in Lane County would be interested. But really, this is becoming more and more of a information exchange and information to the public, because as legal services have gotten more and more expensive, I think the joke is that lawyers can't afford lawyers. Nobody really can afford lawyers. And so lawyer time is so expensive that the courts and the state court system, the federal courts are very concerned about how many people who have legitimate legal problems don't know where to go. And so many of them find their way to the Lane County Law Library. And so the social service function of, well, where do I go? And literally, when I was down there a week or so ago, when I was down there and people came in and said, hey, where do I pay my property taxes on my mobile home? So all kinds of people come in there, and sometimes those questions are fairly easy. Well, how about assessment and taxation? So sometimes those problems are fairly easy, but oftentimes they're not. They can be very complex. People are going through child custody. People are going through divorce. People are trying to deal with landlord-tenant issues, on and on and on, and they can be very complex. And so this law library has maybe started out as the place where the judges and lawyers went to look for law. But now a lot of law is online. They don't need to go down there for the, quote, law. But the public is coming in with greater and greater numbers and trying to figure out how to serve them in an efficient, professional way is a real challenge for law libraries. And then just libraries themselves, broader than law libraries. It's an information place. It's a public place. The tax dollars in some way fund that, and it's really open to everyone. So I think it's great that we get somebody with the experience of working in a law library as an assistant law librarian, knows a lot of the challenges, and now guess what? The buck stops with you. So welcome.
Thank you.
So,
All right, thank you.
welcome, Sue. And before we move on from new people, I just want to mention that we did have another hire recently, which was Casey Creer as our performance auditor. And I believe, Commissioner Farr, are you hosting a little reception at 4 o'clock? Or?
There's going to be a reception at 4 o'clock, a meet and greet this evening, yes.
Yeah, and is that here at?
Right here, yes.
Yes. So 4 o'clock, folks that want to meet our new performance auditor, Casey Creer.
If I may, before Sue leaves, Mr. Chair, just wanted to mention, you'll see a steady stream of visitors, and one person you're going to see quite often, and I see him in here regularly when they're not in session, is Senator Floyd Berzanski. You'll have a chance to work with him. He is an attorney, and even seasoned attorneys such as Commissioner Sorensen and Floyd Berzanski do use our law library. And
I can attest to that as well. In Washington County, I would say it was about 50%, half and half, because we have a lot of solo and small firm attorneys, and they can't afford a Westlaw subscription or some of the other materials. So, I would say that yes, there are some lawyers that use it, but certainly a good portion is the public. So, look forward
welcome to Lane County.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
It's okay.
Thank you, Commissioners, and I'll just make one additional comment about employees. This is oftentimes we get to recognize existing employees for the great work they do here at the board meetings, and it's wonderful to be able to also introduce new employees that we're bringing on board. We'll talk later this morning about our new strategic plan, and I've talked about one of the aspects of that I'm really excited about are these new core behaviors that we've identified. And they are a passion to serve, driven to connect, and focused on solutions. And we're going to keep talking about those. So I'm excited about these two new employees that we have that you met here this morning that seem to exhibit many of those behaviors. And we're going to be talking more about those behaviors and our existing employees that demonstrate that great work. You mentioned our new performance auditor, and I know that Mr. Creer is meeting with Alana Holmes, our HR director, this morning. I had invited, so I think they're going to be making their way over at some point this morning, and wanted to have an opportunity just to introduce to all the commissioners and to everyone watching our new performance auditor. So he started yesterday, was in new employee orientation, and we will have a reception this afternoon at 4 p.m. that anyone is available to attend, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to hear from Mr. Creer at some point today. Mr. Chair, I have one more item. Sure. You see Mr. Hurley, our interim public works director, patiently waiting here. Commissioner, you may recall I think it was about 3 weeks ago, Mayor Coey from Oak Ridge was here and made a request of Lane County to look at county access to county roads for use by ATVs. And the board was interested in that and directed us, so that is an assignment. Commissioner Williams asked me last week if we could provide a brief update on where that's at, and so I invited Dan here. I know Dan's been doing work with our staff, working with legal counsel and the sheriff's office on that, and just wanted Dan to be able to give you a brief update on it, and then answer any questions you may have.
All right. Good morning, Commissioners. Yes, I started digging into this issue last week. There have been some legislative changes around this issue of ATV use on public roads. In the 2017 legislature, the legislature passed Senate Bill 344, which I've read through the bill. I'm not clear that it gives us the jurisdiction to authorize this. So I need to have some more conversations with legal counsel. But the city of Oak Ridge did take action. They passed an ordinance to allow ATV use, and specifically class 4 ATVs, which are ATVs weighing up to 1,800 pounds, and these are called side-by-sides. But within the city limits, they're able to use city roads. Mayor Coey was here on February 27th, and he asked if we would allow access to all county roads surrounding the city so that they can expand their recreational festivals. They have an annual side-by-side festival. And it would be a great thing if we can find a way to make this work for their economic development. But we have some considerations that we need to work through to make sure that we have the authority to do this. And then there are also some safety concerns. I'd like to talk with the sheriff's office. So I spoke with Mayor Coey last Friday. He has 3 roads that are a priority for him that get access to Forest Service roads. And he's also talking to the U.S. Forest Service to see if they can give authorization to use those roads as well. So I'm planning to speak with legal counsel and have them review the ORS and make sure that we have the authority there. And then I want to have a conversation with the sheriff's office to talk about potential safety issues, and also look at our liability and work with legal counsel and see if there's a way to authorize this and maybe enter into some agreement with the city of Oak Ridge to release us from liability in the event that one of these vehicles causes an accident.
What it would be in broad terms, what would be the agreement between the county and the city, or the county, city, and Forest Service? What would be the basics? Are they going to build an off-road vehicle track on their lands, or how's it going to work?
I think what they're looking for, Commissioner, is access between the city limits where their roads stop and then to the Forest Service roads where they want to connect people into for these festivals. So that county road segment. I don't think we want to just say county roads blanket, but I think we need to look at specific segments where they would like to use.
And are these, would these be like motorcycle races, or what would these be?
What I've seen is it's more sort of touring. These are large 4-wheel vehicles. They're only asking for access for these class 4 larger ATV vehicles at this point.
Okay.
So we just want to make sure.
Are they not allowed currently on county roads?
They're not currently allowed.
Are they allowed on city streets?
Cross the roads, but they're not allowed.
They can cross a road, but not be on a road?
Correct.
So this would be to allow the use of them on the city street, on the county road, and then on the Forest Service road?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And are there specific routes that they're proposing, like 1 or 2, or is it all of them?
Yes, they have a map of the routes that they want to use. So
they shared with us a bigger route map.
Right.
Okay. Good. Well, and what is the timeline for this?
So I want to have some conversations over the next couple of weeks, get a board packet together for you, and come back on April 17th for a discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Commissioner Williams.
Well, thank you for looking into this quickly. This is a sensitive matter time-wise for a number of the rural communities. The recreation season's coming up. They've lost a great deal in the opportunity for recreation. The big slide up on the off to Heidi has caused a serious impact up the McKenzie and the connection to 58. Catastrophic fires last summer put a lot of big events that are money makers in the rural communities. Those just vaporized, no pun intended. And then it's my understanding that the snowpack in the mountains is of such low amount and quality that the ski resorts have barely been able to operate on a very curtailed level. So the economic hardships that just keep coming and coming and coming to some of these areas, this is an opportunity to help mitigate some of that, and I would hope that all the partners can come together and make this a reality. So, thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks, Dan.
All right.
Thanks for stopping in.
Thank you, Board.
Any other announcements?
That's it. Let's see if you have questions for me.
Any questions?
I do have a question. I was going to talk about Casey when he came. He and Alana are planning to be here, so I can reserve that. But just a question for you. I was watching a basketball game on Sunday. Did you watch that game?
I saw something. I promised I wouldn't bring that up. Yeah.
No,
but I'm happy to talk about it, Commissioner. If you, it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't much of a game, to be honest.
I kind of lost interest after the first quarter when I realized that Steph Curry was playing for Marquette. When did that happen? And that guy was hitting from every corner of the
well
court.
Behind the arc, for sure.
Oh my God! That one where he faked one way, spun a double 360, I think, and cast one off. Man. So anyway, I wish Marquette well for the finals of the NIT.
I wish it was in the big dance. I wish both teams were in the big dance, but maybe next year.
That's an entertaining game. So.
Yes.
So if there's no further questions for the county administration, we have a 10 o'clock time certain, so I want to try and deal with some of the other items while we're waiting for that so we can try and get Commissioner Sorensen to his lunch appointment. County Council announcements, there will be an exec session today, and I think we'll try and stick that in before lunch if it will fit. We'll just have to see where we are time-wise. It should be relatively brief. And then that moves us to Commissioner's business. Any announcements from Commissioners? Seeing none, then that brings us to agenda team requests, which this is where I wanted to try and get some guidance. We did not have agenda team this morning because we're down next week, and we will be having agenda team next week. We kind of did not finish our work session last Wednesday, and I wanted to get some direction from the board as to setting a follow-up meeting, what that meeting should be concerning. I kind of got, it seemed like we did finish the first item on initiatives, and really the referral item was what was left open. And we did have a work session reserved for that for May 23rd previously, and that's still in our schedule. And would that be the proper place to take this back up? What should we plan? What should staff plan to be discussing? So, Commissioner Farr.
Just out of curiosity, what would that meeting entail? What is the gist of that meeting? Because I am a little bit lost on that. I stated last Tuesday that I didn't feel that we'd satisfied all the questions that were asked. Since then, after reviewing, I think the course of action is fairly well prescribed. So what is the May 23rd work session?
That's kind of what, we kind of ended without finishing. So whether it's just to finish that work session or not, but I had expressed I thought we had kind of run through what the options were for the board and some of the barriers to referring ordinances that might be in violation of state law and some of the options available for the citizens to continue their, a citizen-driven initiative process. But there was still folks at that time that were having conversations about, what could we do, getting to yes or something like that. So I didn't want to cut the conversation off. So, that's kind of, I kind of feel like we did kind of talk about all the options and kind of finished at least the discussion of the options. We just didn't talk about what next step the board might take, and that's where we kind of lost. So this might be the opportunity to talk about what's that next.
Yeah, and that was the question that I had. I maybe misunderstood Commissioner Sorensen's. He asked the question, how do we get to yes? What is a yes we need to get to? Because I thought it was how do we get to yes, and making certain that the people who had questions regarding the initiative process and what the next steps were. I thought getting to yes was making certain they had their questions answered. And is there anything beyond that, Commissioner Sorensen? Can you respond to that, or what is the yes?
I believe that the commissioners expressed their views that there was no need for any further work sessions on either the initiative or the idea that the board would put something in front of the voters, because there wasn't sufficient interest in that. Personally, I'd like to see us move ahead with some of the other options, and one of which was the idea of crafting our own proposal for the public to comment on that's within our statutory rights as a county, and last but not least, to use our authority under the advisory vote that Mr. Dingell spoke about. That is yet a third option for us to think about. So, but my impression was that there wasn't any interest or sufficient interest to merit going ahead. And so I just put it out there that I personally thought that the county had not provided sufficient opportunity for the public to actually carry through on the fact that 15,000 people or 12,000 people, or at least 12,000 signatures, wanted to put something on the ballot, and that through various means they were not able to get yet on the ballot, and that this board could provide an outlet. So the yes is, could we provide an outlet for the public interest in voting on the topic of aerial herbicides? Is that aerial application of herbicide? Is that something that the board wants to do in some sort of actual code change proposal or an advisory vote? And my impression was that the board didn't want to go there, and there wasn't sufficient interest in going there, and that we don't need to belabor the need to have a work session on it if people just don't think that that's within our current mission, within our strategic plan. And so I just don't want to fight about something that there's not interest in.
Okay. That seems fairly clear. Okay.
Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was pretty satisfied with the outcome of that work session, that any questions that I had were addressed, and I see personally no further need to go into additional discussion regarding the subject. I think it's pretty clear. There are clear pathways to get where folks would like to go in the initiative process, and so I wish anybody that was involved in petition gathering good luck in getting that. But I think we've pretty much exhausted the discussion regarding this at the work session we've already had. So I'm not really in favor of additional work sessions on this item.
Commissioner Lycan, do you have anything to add to that?
No, nothing more to add.
So I'm hearing that we're ready to close that item out as far as a board assignment.
I think any further discussion would not necessarily have to happen at the board level. I think people are going to continue to talk about it, but really when we had the presentation from council last week, they talked about charter versus ordinance. talked about different initiative processes for charters versus ordinances, and I think that was clearly delineated, so that if anyone wanted to move forward with something other than a charter amendment, they have the opportunity to do that. So I think the discussion, the presentation by Mr. Dingell satisfied my questions regarding the initiative process and what people can do to move forward with the initiative process.
So I think with that, we will cancel the May 23rd additional work session at this time. The only thing I might be interested in, and I think it might be more of a legislative effort, and we had legislative committee yesterday, and it was mentioned there, is a possible change in statute to clarify when the actual separate vote analysis happens, and allow for the county to do that up front rather than have people go through this whole process and then find out after the fact that they don't have a legal initiative that they just spent a lot of time circulating signatures for.
If I may, Mr. Chair, in talking with folks, one gentleman in particular subsequent to this, there's an expression that frustration in the Oregon legislature. The quote was that we've been working decades trying to get the legislature to do something, and the legislature won't do anything. And having been in the legislature, I was in the House side, Commissioner Swenson was on the Senate side. On the House side, things are maybe a little bit different. If a bill is presented by a legislator, whoever that legislator may be, and the Speaker of the House deems it to be worthy of assigning to a committee, then it gets assigned to a committee. And then if the committee chair deems it worthy of discussion at the committee level, it gets discussed at the committee level. And if the committee deems it worthy of going to the House floor, then it goes to the House floor. That's a very simple process. I mean, there are a lot of steps along the way, but really a legislator takes it to the legislation. The Speaker of the House makes a decision as to where the bill goes from there, or if it just sits in a basket. Sometimes that happens. We all know that. And sometimes when it goes to committee, it sits in a different basket. And sometimes it goes through that committee and then goes and sits in yet a different basket. So there are lots of different short stops along the way. But a bill going from a local legislator, a locally elected legislator, to the Speaker's desk, to committee, to the House floor, is steps that if the legislature is willing to do that, then the legislature has every option to do that. And if people want to lobby their legislature, their local representative, to make something happen in the legislature, it's not a difficult process. It's not mysterious.
Thank you, Commissioner Farr. So I am seeing at least three of us that agree that we will not schedule that May 23rd work session. I just want to get that direction clear for Diana Jones so we can set take that task off the proposed items for the board. So with that, any other agenda team or work session requests at this time? Seeing none, we are about 10 minutes away from our 10 o'clock time certain, but I am seeing our folks from PSU down here raring to go. So if it's okay with everybody, I think we'll move on to our 10 o'clock time certain, which was Order 1803-2002, in the matter of adopting the 2018
Is that the same thing as this?
the 2021 Lane County Strategic Plan, and we have Dr. Banyan from Portland State University and Judy Williams, our Strategic Planning and Budget Supervisor. And Steve, did you want to start us out?
I'll just make some introductory comments here, Mr. Chair. This is sort of the culmination of a lot of work over several months, great work with Portland State University, with our staff here in Lane County. We've talked about this being the board and our organization and community did great work 3 years ago in developing and adopting a new strategic plan. Incredible things have been accomplished over the last 3 years. Through that plan and the focus that's been created through that work. And we've said in this revision process, we want an evolution, not a revolution. And I think it's interesting when we sort of look out here, we reflect on the direction of the pace of change that's occurring in our world today with the advancement in technology, with automation. We talked about driverless vehicles. With automation, with artificial intelligence, the pace of change. And so I think we need to recognize that if we're not evolving, we're dying. We need to continue to allow for change and embrace new opportunities to move forward and be successful. I've been really pleased with this process. It's been a broad and inclusive process of the employees in our organization and of our community. It was one of our goals when we set out to do this work, that we expand the participation and engagement of our employees and community, and I think that's been outstanding. Been a lot of analysis and refinement of work that has been conducted, and particularly two new components of this plan that we set out from the beginning, and we talked to PSU and we brought them on board with, and I'm just really pleased that I think we've accomplished these two new components. The first is to aspire to some great things, and I'm excited about our new purpose statement, these broader visionary statements that help to catalyze and unify employees and the community. Our purpose statement to improve lives, which is very simple. We've talked about other great organizations like Disney Corporation, that said their purpose was to make people happy. Very simple, that everyone can unify around. And so we're really pleased with the simplicity of that statement to improve lives. We're really excited about our new core behaviors that we talked about earlier, and you had a couple new employees that exhibit those behaviors: a passion to serve, driven to connect, and focused on solutions. So that was one of our two goals in terms of the new components, was this to aspire towards some new visionary components of the plan. And then the second was accountability, and Judy and Dr. Banyan will get into this in greater detail, but the first was this broader sort of aspirational approach, and the second was a more detailed, focused, creating accountability for the plan, and that I believe we've accomplished through the identification of some specific metrics, performance measures, and the development of a scorecard that will allow us to track progress ongoing. So very excited about this. You know that I carry some passion, not just about calling out the fact that we have a plan, but in what results from the focus of all of our efforts on saying we're not going to be everything to all people. We're not going to get everything done that everybody wants to get done, but we are going to accomplish the things that are most important to this board and to this community. So really excited about that, and I'll turn it over to Judy and Dr. Banyan to dive a little bit deeper.
Thank you, Steve. Good morning, commissioners. So as Steve discussed, and we've got these reminders up here of our new purpose statement, which is to improve lives. The new values, we went from 7 down to these. Easy to remember. We had a lot of feedback from staff and leaders, and we really feel like this is a good summary of what everyone thought our values were and should be moving forward. And then the three core behaviors, as Steve also just mentioned. And just briefly, I did hand out a paper copy, just in case. It's the same version of the material that you had in your electronic file, but just to have a paper copy of the final strategic plan. A reminder that the documents are available on our website, an electronic version. We do have a lot of attachments with this update and final plan as well. And so I just wanted to guide your attention to some of those attachments for you to review at a later time, or for the public to look at that. So we, as Steve mentioned, we had a great amount of participation with community members, leaders, staff, and a lot of that is incorporated in report, document summary format as attachments. And then again, we just kind of a brief highlight overview on, again, the strategic priorities that we did mention in our draft update to you 3 weeks ago, but I just wanted to briefly highlight some of these strategic priorities. So safe and healthy county is remaining as our priority, number 1. Vibrant communities. Infrastructure is the same, and we added the robust element to that. And then added a 4th priority, was our people and partnerships, to really incorporate the administrative pieces of our staff and our plan, and some of the other internal operations aspects of how we do our business. And then this is another overview, I won't go through this in detail, but this is our new one-pager, and we'll have copies of these laminated for you shortly. But this is a summary of all of those 4 strategic priorities, several of the key strategic initiatives under each of those, and then measures that we've now added in more detail. And so this is just a high-level summary of this one-pager. And then with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Margaret Banyan to kind of talk about some of the changes that we've seen since we last came to you 3 weeks ago.
So good morning, everybody. It's good to see you and good to be here again. So really, we talked a lot at the last meeting that I was here about some of the details. So we thought we would kind of go over what we worked on after we got your feedback. And what you'll see differently in the final document. So the first big difference really is the measures. We looked at those in more detail, took your feedback, and Judy worked really hard to make sure that in your final document you see who's accountable for those measures. So sort of who's on first in terms of pulling some of that data and those metrics. So I think we talked a little bit about what the perfect metric is, and the truth is there's really no perfect metric, but you can get close. And so some of these are what we talked about: reasonable, simple to get measures, and understandable in terms of what they're showing. So I think specifically we looked at this idea of first-time arrests, and what we did is instead we replaced it with a recidivism measure. So behind each of these measures, there's a bit more detail about what's comprised of the measure, so that Judy knows pretty specifically about where that data can come from. So I'm here to answer any questions about those and how those have changed, but I didn't plan to go into considerable detail about them. These will be used, like Steve and Judy mentioned, as in a scorecard, so that you'll be able to track: are we moving in the right direction? Are we moving in the wrong direction with those? So I'll pause there for a minute to see if there's questions about those.
Commissioner Sorensen.
Thank you very much. I was just looking at page 14, the putting it all together slide. And next to safe transportation, the measure is minority business outreach. And I'm wondering if you could, it looks like crashes in facilities by mode might be applying there. What is annual visits to Lane County? Is that like a tourism component, or
yes, so
airport usage or something?
That data would come from the Visitor Bureau.
I mean, I guess I'm asking to have you explain how the measures line up with the key strategic initiative.
I see. Yep. So this was a formatting challenge.
Oh, okay.
Because we have a few more measures per key strategic priority, and they're uneven.
Yep.
So the idea was to
maybe the minority business outreach applies to equity.
Yes.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, that was the goal there.
Okay.
So we can work more on that, about how to format that in a way that it doesn't create confusion about what we're trying to measure.
So, for example, in the safe transportation, it'd be something like crashes in facilities by mode.
Yes.
So each year, there's a certain number of crashes, maybe there's a certain number of deaths by mode: train, airplane, car, truck, whatever.
Pedestrian, bicycle, those are sort of the common ones we'll see.
And then when does this, like, do we pick a date in the past, like, say, July 1st, 2017, we say, okay, that's what it was then, and now our first, is this a quarterly thing? Like our first quarter on, say, October 1, 2018, that's what it is on October 1, 2018, as opposed to July 1, 2017. And then quarterly from there on, we go, oh, is it going up, going down, making progress, going backwards?
Yeah, that's a good question about data because some of this data is lagged.
Yeah.
So it's not always possible to get real-time data, especially for crashes. Judy and I talked about this.
Like a year out, usually.
Yeah, and she'll talk a little bit more at the end of the presentation about the reports to you and how they'll look and sort of what the target is. But I think with data, when we look at it, it's better to be explicit about what time frame that is, but the best available is really the best you're going to do at the time you're developing the measure. Okay. So some of it's lagged, some of it can be more real time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Commissioner Farr.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Benyon. Thank you, Judy. I have more things to say, but just briefly, we have a full presentation ahead of us. But when I first met, when Steve Mokrahajski and I first started talking about strategic planning, it was one of his priorities was to put in place a strong strategic plan that really enabled everybody in the organization at any one point in time to be able to measure what they're doing versus a strategic plan and see how it fits into the plan. I think over the last 4 years we've done a superb job of accomplishing. We have accomplished that, and I think it's universal throughout the organization. And one thing that makes it really even more adaptive to the work that we do is it is a dynamic plan. While the strategies are static, I mean, the plan is written, the tactics change from day to day, and the measurement of tactics beyond the measurements that you list here, we're measuring the tactics as we go along. So measurements aren't just what's listed here. Really, in a good strategic plan, and I'll compare this to other strategic plans that I've worked on in private industry, in nonprofit, and in other governments, that it really matches it in that you measure every single thing you can possibly measure and see how it adapts to the plan. You don't waste time on measurements. You don't waste time on analysis of measurements. But if it's something that fits inside the plan, measure it. And see where it does fit and see how it does illustrate whether you're moving forward on the plan or allowing the plan to slide backward. And so I think I am really, I'll say this now, I'm highly impressed with this body of work. This is fantastic. It's really well done, and I'm excited for the next years working through this plan. As excited as I am looking backward on the plan that we are completing at this point in time. So thank you, Dr. Benyon. My salute and hats off to you. I'll have more to say specifically maybe later.
So then, of course, the second slide here is just some additional measures that you see in the one pager, as well as in the plan. I do want to say, if I don't get a chance to say it later, is that this plan has actually been a model that I'm starting to look at to develop other strategic plans, and part of that is because of the engagement of the commission, as well as the engagement of the staff and the community. So I think part of the success of the outcome here is that there's been a lot of investment and a lot of commitment to the plan. So again, we're using it kind of as a model. There's a lot of data that you see in your attachments, and you don't necessarily see it in the 17 or 18 pages in front of you, but the reason to provide it is also to give you a little bit more flavor of the details, but also to support how there was a lot of very consistent feedback, and that's great news. That's kind of one of the things you want to see. So I think I'm going to turn it back over to Judy to talk about next steps.
Some of the next steps are really kind of working the communication plan. So adopting the plan and then communicating that throughout our organization with staff, with the community members, and also just in terms of ongoing integration. So if we roll this out, have emails, have presentations, go to different departments, and then in 2 weeks we get new staff or new employee orientation. Just really trying to develop that dynamic plan, and that we're incorporating these elements into orientation, into committee members, into onboarding processes, into interview questions that kind of capture, those values, the core behaviors that we're really looking forward to. So to really try and integrate the work into our organization. And then the scorecard, as we've briefly touched on, so hoping as we do our first quarterly update to you, you should be having a scorecard of kind of a one-pager model of the metrics and how those look. And so we'll be updating those on a quarterly basis for you so that you could refer to your one-pager and on the backside refer to the scorecard on what's the progress that we're making on some of these metrics and give you the communication tools that you need for your day-to-day work. And then the quarterly updates, as I mentioned as well. And then just a brief touch on some of the roles that we've discussed again throughout, but just again emphasizing how dynamic this will be and kind of synergistic as we all have a role to play in rolling this plan out. So as the commissioners, as you're having discussions with community members, increasing that knowledge to our residents about the strategic plan, using the plan to guide your actions on the current day-to-day basis and also for future needs as well. For our county leaders, really just ensuring that we are actively implementing the plan, also educating our staff, inspiring and engaging employees. For departments, again, as we really make this dynamic and kind of deepen the level of participation in this plan, is really working with our departments and having the department work plans really align with the county plan and to some of the detail of the key activity areas, action items, tactics, and making sure they're synergistic and rolling up and also reporting back in on the progress of those metrics. And then staff, just in terms of executing these strategies, they're the ones, day to day that are working these elements of the plan. And then also just keeping apprised of what the results are, whether it's through the quarterly update process, through staff meetings, management team information sharing about what are the goals, what are the results that we've achieved, and really to kind of be an active participant in the organization's plans as they're a good, as they can communicate with their neighbors, or they're a good point of contact for what is the county doing and could be able to help address some of these aspects too. And that's really all of that I had, and I would want to just summarize this with a great thank you to PSU for all of the work that they've done in kind of guiding us through this process. The commissioners, staff, county leaders, just really wanted to thank. We had a lot of participation and focus groups, community meetings, and it was great to see staff coming and getting really, working on the details and really giving us their ideas and feedback. And I think we've really encaptured their thoughts and really incorporated that into the plan. And I'm excited to carry this through. So I will turn it over to you if you have any comments or questions. And
Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for a great report. As the guy that's not quite been on board for a year, as was often described when I was new to this position, that there's a lot going on. It's like drinking from a fire hose. I heard that many, many times, and it's pretty descriptive of the experience of coming on board an organization like this that has so many components. What this does for me is actually gives me a great deal of clarity and direction. It kind of pinpoints things more accurately than my experience from a shotgun approach, that there's so many different things coming at me. This gives me really clear direction, and it's very, very helpful and useful. Can't can't thank you folks enough for making this happen and the refinement that went into it. It is a great document, and I really appreciate it, and thank you.
Commissioner Lyken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to say thank you very much. It was great having Portland State as a partner on this, and I just want to say thank you for the work that you did on this as well. When we were back at the NACO conference and Steve and I were meeting with our federal delegation, I think one of the, in fact, Steve used this term, and it was a great term to use. And when we were meeting with the leadership of our delegation, he talked about our house being in order. And I think about the strategic plan that we just came off of to the strategic plan where that's moving us into the next decade. Frankly, this one is a bit more laser focused, and I like that. I think what we've done is we really identified some areas to move forward on, and from my perspective, and especially having something just to carry around, just to remind you of what our strategic plan is, just to show people. But the nice thing is our delegation completely agreed with Steve's assessment, our house being in order, and where I'm not going to say we're weaned from the federal dollars. That's never going to be the case. But the difference is that while I still strongly believe those federal dollars are due to us, the way laws are written and that type of thing, we're able to move forward on certain things without having to go back and say we're begging at the public trough. And when I look at, again, the part I just like the best, I really do, is our people and partnerships right smack in the middle. I think that is such a great foundation, a great way to start, that this is where it begins, and then the rest of it, which is infrastructure, stuff, tools that each of the departments need to carry on their work. But it starts with that middle piece. What a great foundation to have when you talk about our people and partnerships. And what I have learned as serving the city for 12 years, and now as a county for almost 8, counties have to have, I think, even stronger partnerships than you can possibly imagine. Our work with the state and the federal partners, as well as with our city partners, is so significant. And having that as a foundation, to me, I think really sets the tone for the strategic plan. And I just want to say again, thank you, because it's easy for all of us as electeds to kind of go, well, what about this, what about this? But to have that really say, well, here's the focus. Here's where we really need to be focused on. And Steve, to our staff, Judy, to our entire staff that worked and participated, big thank you to all of you and the community. I still go back to the dots, and it's Chair Bozovich, boy, his district has a lot of interest, and they made it pretty clear, a lot of interest in and really gave their input, which I thought was great. And but I think going forward allows us to say this is really all about all of Lane County and not just certain parts of Lane County. So those are my general thoughts, and I just again want to say thank you for Portland State being our partner in this, and Judy, job well done as our lead staff. Great job.
Commissioner Farr.
Thank you. Really, how complicated is our charge at Lane County? Well, it's really complicated. I mean, there are so many different things that we need to do on a daily basis, and different things get thrown at us all the time, every single day, including today. But how complicated is it to do my job today, this moment in time? Well, this makes my job pretty easy to do at any one point in time. My job is fairly focused on the tactic that we're working on the strategic plan. So that's what this good plan does, is it makes our very, very complicated set of work, breaks it down into very easy, relatively easy, to accomplish single tasks. And really, I compare this with the strategic plan that I looked at when I first came to the county, and that plan said something along the lines of do good with what you've got, I think is what it said. which is good. You know, that's a great strategic plan, but it didn't include all of the tactics underneath it. You know, this says basically improve lives, but it also gives us a roadmap as to how to improve lives, specifically how to improve lives. And at the end of the process, we look back and see how well we did. We measure it against the goals that we have established. So it's great. The other thing I want to point out is I'm holding in my hand here the Lane County Poverty and Homelessness Board Strategic Plan. Oh dear, we've got 2 strategic plans, right? And then we have another one here that I'm looking at, the Community Health Improvement Plan. So we have all these strategic plans. Oh my gosh, how do we do this? How do we juggle the plans? Well, we don't, because this is wrapped into this, and the CHIP is wrapped into this, and our Public Works Strategic Plan is wrapped into this. Everything is wrapped into this one master document, which is the Lane County Strategic Plan, which changes on a regular basis based upon the changing environment, the changing landscape that we work in. It's brilliant. It's really well done, and I'm glad to hear, Dr. Banyan, that you're using this as a model, because to me, it's a wonderful model. So once again, I'm not going to go into the details of what is in here, because that changes, and really our focus is our focus. But really, this should make it easy for the newest employee. Now, Commissioner Williams is no longer the newest employee at Lane County, but he said it very well. It gives him a relatively easy means to test the work that he's doing at any one point in time. And while he was mayor of Cottage Grove for 12 years, and a city councilor in Cottage Grove for years before that, great experience in government, great experience with Lane Council of Government. Along the way, Commissioner Williams has done all kinds of government work, but getting here to the county, it becomes all of a sudden a very different, complex set of priorities and jobs to do. This allowed him to take all of the wealth of experience that he's accomplished and accumulated throughout all these years and focus on what he's doing today. So brilliant. I'm in love with this plan. Thank you.
Commissioner Sorensen.
I'm in love with my wife, but I still I like the plan a lot. We're not dating yet, but anyway, I like the plan a lot, and I also like the logo. Who did the logo? You? They?
It was a combined effort.
A combined
Lots
effort.
of input and a combined effort.
Well, that's a consultant answer. Good. So, yeah, I think it's really great. And, you know, these 3, well, I guess there's 5 circles, maybe 6 when you look at it. It's kind of a Rorschach test of how many circles there are. But the safe and healthy community, you know, 2 of our bigger departments, public safety, the sheriff's office, and Health and Human Services are clearly within that circle. Our robust infrastructure, obviously our Public Works Department, and our vibrant communities, again, more on the public health, but also on the economic development. And I think that the partnerships component is there. When Lane County was the big dog in local government finance, and I'm talking distant fiscal years in the past, 1970, 1973, Lane County had so much money. It had its own Small is Beautiful economic development program. It was able to share with cities road funds and other economic development dollars. Well, at that time, it was the cities that wanted to partner with the county. Well, now we look back now, and there's been this substantial reduction in our federal funds dollars, and so now we're the one that needs to be partnering with and get things done with other governments that have really grown more. If we look at what was the budget of the 12 cities in Lane County, 40 years ago versus what was the budget of Lane County, and then we turn that around, go, what's that relative size? Well, guess what? We're smaller. I remember when Lane County has 2,000 employees. We normally really talk about now 1,300 employees. So we've seen a lot of reduction, and therefore this partnership with nonprofits and local governments. And by the way, if you looked at the nonprofit function in Lane County, the number of dollars, number of people, you would find that was a tiny percentage of the economy. Now we're one of the leading economies in the state for nonprofits. So there's a lot of great things in this plan. I like it very much. And I think that it's a challenge. Probably the biggest challenge for me is to make sure that we're not overdoing the metrics. In other words, get into, oh, well, you know, it's a 2% this way and it's a 3% that way, and really look at the big picture of, are we trying to meet as many needs as we can within the four corners of what we say we want to do, and not over data analyze it, but rather use it as a tool to move the organization in a way to serve the most people. So I really appreciate it. It's great work. And I hope you're going to be involved in the revision of this document as well.
I like my cats very well.
Yeah, okay, good.
So I just want to thank you for the hard work on this and the effort that we made. Both Dr. Banyan and Judy, you guys came out with a really great product. But, you know, one of the things you talked about in the next steps that's really key, and Commissioner Farr touched on this pretty well, is that ongoing integration. And that was really what's key to why our past plan was successful, and what the leadership of the administrator in making sure all of our strategic plans were integrated into our overall strategic plan. Every department's plan, you know, touched on those three areas: safe, healthy county, vibrant communities, and infrastructure, and talked about how their strategic plan for the department fit into the larger strategic plan. Each department has a little strategic plan and has their own one-pager, you know, that fit into that. That integration down through the organization gets to where each employee understands how they fit, and helps with that, you know. And one of the things we're measuring as a metric is employee engagement. That's one of the ways you drive employee engagement. So that, you know, everybody understands how they fit into the whole, and that vast array of services we have. So that ongoing integration is extremely important. And yeah, we don't want to get too bogged down in the details of how to measure things and metrics, but it is important to have some kind of measurement, because ultimately one of the ways you have a living plan is to measure outcomes and then change the plan based on what's generating good outcomes and what's not, and adjust your plan along the way. And you know, there's great opportunities. We had a presentation at Human Services Commission, another one of our collaborative organizations across jurisdictions, yesterday, about the development of a new poverty and homelessness board strategic plan that's underway right now, and will be another 3-year plan that's going to fit under this plan. And you know, talked about how the CHIP informs that plan, and how they're all integrated amongst each other. So it's interesting, because you know, the CHIP's a federally generated document that's required by the federal government, and you know, the other plans, you know, and one department of the federal government, the other plan has some HUD involvement, you know. So there's all these different agencies that are requiring us to have plans, and how they all fit together. But this document ties all that together, and that's, you know, really important. And I just, you know, I was at the Public Safety Coordinating Council last week, and my communication, you know, we go around the table kind of and just share information, and my communication was about the draft strategic plan to the rest of the coordinating council, and another multi-jurisdictional council, and I talked about just the 4 strategic initiatives under Safe Healthy County, and what that meant to that group. And that group is, you know, charged with our public safety system. But one of the key things in there was that increased housing options. You know, really important, because one of the things that group deals with is trying to prevent crime. Well, one of the things that's driving a lot of crime is a lack of housing in some ways, where people are inadvertently committing trespass and all that as they're unhoused. You know, increase prevention and treatment services. You know, another issue, and also an issue in our diversion programs. You know, having the ability to divert people into those systems. enhanced public safety funding, and particularly talking about rural public safety and some of that response time and our rural patrol. And that's really about earlier intervention sometimes in criminality. You know, if you have that staff out there. And it also touches on the whole issue of traffic safety and safety on our highways. You know, pursuing effective diversion, correction, probation and parole programs, that also just gets back to the focus we've had on restorative justice here, and also diversion of folks, you know, from mental health and not having them in our jail system and having them out in some of these diversion programs. And we have a metric measuring that, which kind of gets me to the fact that, you know, I noticed that Dan Buchwald, Captain Buchwald was the one that's measuring that metric. And I'm kind of wondering if that should have been Lieutenant Riley, because isn't Captain Buchwald pretty close to being out the door or something like that? You know, there's a little joke running around PSCC last week about him in a Speedo in Mexico. So, you might want to rethink who we've got that assigned to, but I have to appreciate Captain Buchwald for the amazing work he's done over the years, and the fact that even in retirement, he's starting to work with Veterans Legacy out there at the Alma work camp and helping them get off the ground and helping veterans, you know, reintegrate with our community, and that's a prevention program in itself. So I'll be sharing some of this tonight. I have our mayor's quarterly meeting of all the mayors in Lane County tonight, and I'll be talking with them a little bit about particularly the expansion of the public safety and working into the next stages of our 10-year public safety plan tonight, and maybe some of the models that might solve that. So it'll be an interesting discussion tonight. So I'm going to do my part to start sharing the strategic plan even today. So I really appreciate the effort, and I think one of the reasons you're seeing the engagement of the commissioners and the community is they saw what happened with the last strategic plan and the way our administrator was able to integrate that through the whole organization and the results from doing that, which makes people pretty excited about strategic planning when they see those results. So hopefully we'll be just as excited in 3 years as we develop a new one. But along the way, it's all about measuring those outcomes, adjusting the plan, measuring the outcomes, adjusting the plan, because all plans have to be living plans. So really great job. I like where we ended up. And you know, I have all the confidence in the world that Steve will make sure it's integrated through the organization. We're going to talk about it out in public, and the staff's going to be able to carry out the objectives of the strategic plan. So, well done. Bravo. So, any further?
Without belaboring the point, I just want to, make one final comment about integration. I appreciate several commissioners have brought that up, and that's the key here. These are just words on a piece of paper unless we actually take them and make sure that our actions reflect what we've said we're going to do here. So in terms of making sure that this takes root, Judy touched on the things we're going to be doing to work with departments, make sure the department plans are integrated, and this plan is reflected in all of that work. I think that performance measures are really going to help with the board in tracking those efforts, and of course we'll bring that forward on a quarterly basis. And so just in terms of the strategies and objectives and goals, I think that's going to be really clear about how we can track progress on work. And of course it's my responsibility, ultimately the board's responsibility, to hold all of us accountable for implementing these things. But the other piece I just want to touch on is, we've seen you've got to meet some new employees. We recognize existing employees who've done outstanding work all the time. And at the end of the day, the people in our organization, the over 1,300 individuals who work here, are the ones who are going to be doing this work and making sure that we accomplish the things that we want to accomplish. And so in addition to stating the things that we want to accomplish here, we also want to make sure that we're hiring and retaining and promoting the people that are best placed to do this work. And so again, I'll go back to the new components of this and just, a couple things that we're specifically going to do to integrate, for example, our core behaviors, the things that the people that we want in this organization, the people that we want to lift up, that we want to recognize and to hire into our organization are people who have a passion to serve, people who are driven to connect, and people who are focused on solutions. We're going to be integrating those aspects of this plan into our interview questions. When we're interviewing for new employees, we're going to be probing on whether or not individuals fit those criteria. In terms of our orientations, when we're bringing on new employees, making sure that they understand these are the things that we really want out of folks. Our performance evaluations, when we do annual performance evaluations for every employee every year, we're going to be rating people, and you will be rating me, just as I will be rating the folks who work for me, and down throughout the organization, that everyone gets rated on those things consistently. When we do awards and recognitions, when we bring forward individuals to the board, and we have other ways in which we recognize employees, that we're lifting up individuals who are exhibiting those components of the plan, not just specifically the initiatives and the tactics that we're doing, because those will change, but what will not change are those core elements of what we expect from our employees. So that is the critical piece from today on forward, is making sure that we integrate all of these aspects of this plan into the fabric of the organization, and everybody has, all 5 of you have responsibility, all of us, the folks here, and everyone throughout our organization have responsibility in carrying out that work, and that work starts today after the board votes. So we're looking forward to doing that and coming back to the board with regular updates, and I'm excited about the progress and success I know we're going to have over the next several years.
And I just have to say I'm really excited that Casey Creer is sitting in the audience to listen to the discussion of the strategic plan, because that should make you excited about working with this board and our administrator, what you're hearing right now. So we do have an order that we need to adopt this strategic plan. Commissioner Lyken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Select and move approval of Order 18-03-2002 in the matter of adopting the 2018-2021 Lane County Strategic Plan.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Lyken, seconded by Commissioner Williams. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. And I want to thank you very much for all your work.
Very good.
And with that, I want to drop back to county administration announcements, because I believe you want to introduce us to somebody.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to welcome Alana Holmes and Casey Creer, and come on up here if you both would come up. And we won't put you on the spot for anything in particular, but was just looking for an opportunity to introduce Casey to the board and to those watching here today. We're really excited. I know that you started yesterday, had new employee orientation, and we've got a reception this afternoon at 4 p.m. And so I don't know if you want to talk, maybe, I know the board is familiar, but particularly for people who might be watching, just about the process that we went through in recruiting for a new performance auditor, and some of Casey's outstanding background and experience. And we're really excited to welcome you here to Lane County.
Certainly, I'd be happy to. Good morning, commissioners. My name is Lana Holmes. I'm the Human Resources Director. The county went through a very rigorous national recruitment for this process, and 2 finalists were brought to the board, in the new year. Interviews were held. Those were broadcasted interviews, and a finalist was selected with a very thorough vetting and background checks, et cetera. And with very high regard and comments, the finalist presented to you was Casey Creer, and the decision was made to bring him on board, and I spent a bit of time working with him to make that happen. He is our new county performance auditor, who has got a lot of experience in a wide variety of positions, from city, some state, some consulting work, and also has a PhD with a lot of good experience and work that he did in getting that PhD. He could probably talk more about that, but I know we're very confident and excited to have him on board with us and look forward to supporting him in his success.
Commissioners, Administrator, I want to say I'm very excited to be here. It's been a whirlwind. I identify with Commissioner Williams when he's talking about drinking out of a fire hose. Because from day one yesterday, it's been nonstop meet, greet, start to understand the actual operational infrastructure of the county. And even prior to then actually moving to Eugene, coming out of Denver, nothing but a smooth transition. The administrator and his staff have been able to go through everything with me, help me even go so far as to find an actual apartment, make sure that I can actually get here on time and have a nice, safe actual journey. And so, yeah, background, I've already said this a little bit, but just background in finance for the Bachelor of Business Administration, Master in Public Administration for Decision Management and Research, and then a doctorate in Curriculum and Instruction, specifically operational performance assessment, development, and management. So that is going into actually understanding the operational infrastructure of several organizations and different entities. And so my hope is to collaborate with the administrator and his staff, county officials, the Performance Audit Committee, anyone that actually plays a role or is curious about the actual inner workings of the organization to make sure that things like the strategic plan actually happen the best way possible and adhering to all the governing rules and regulations therein. So just been really excited, and it's been interesting coming from Texas originally. I remember I was on the phone with my dad not too long ago, and I was on the phone with him and I said, Dad, I was here. I said, Dad, I am looking at the biggest squirrel I have ever seen. And a woman came up from behind me, and she said, son, that's a beaver. So I said, I'm a long way from home. So, yeah, but the transition has been good. It's been really nice. I've had an opportunity to meet with a lot of staff, although I've been told it's still just a small portion of everyone that's here. So looking forward to get to meet everyone and actually collaborate with finding how efficiently the county can run and how we can push ourselves in a positive direction. So excited to be here and grateful and looking forward to it. And thank you all again for hiring me and for the confidence that you placed in me. And I hope to actually show that y'all made a good decision. So.
Thank you. Commissioner Farr.
Well, Dr. Creer, welcome to the center of the known universe.
Yeah.
We're talking about track and field now, right?
Yes.
I know that you're a track and field fan, and you'll see plenty of that starting about Saturday.
Okay.
But welcome, and I will mention that at 4 o'clock today we have a meet and greet where staff and others will have an opportunity to say hello to you in a small session. It'll be upstairs outside of the BCC conference room in the kind of lobby area that we have there. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to working with you. I'm excited. Each time you've talked to us, you've had some of the funniest jokes I've ever heard. So I'm looking forward to that. And there are a few beavers around here, but mostly, as you know, we are ducks. So
yeah, I'm catching that. Gotta watch what I say.
In fact. But welcome to Lane County. It's a pleasure. Alana mentioned that you were a part of a national search, that you were the ultimate, the culmination of national search. The second national search. The first one did not produce a candidate who fit the job. Dr. Creer, welcome on board. I'm looking forward to working with you for years to come.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Sorensen.
Well, first of all, welcome to the Lane County Courthouse, which is in the South Eugene District. Secondly, the University of Oregon is noted for its national track team. And what you may not know is that Hayward Field, where the U.S. Olympic track trials are held, where the World Track and Field Games will be held, that's in the South Eugene District. And, there's a theme here. Along Amazon Creek are animals that live there, and those are not beavers and they're not squirrels. They're nutria. Stay away from nutria.
Nutria.
Yeah, and that's in the South Eugene district. Want to let you know. Now, the University of Oregon's public administration and business schools are both located at the University of Oregon in the South Eugene district. And they are, I think, a resource for you. Your predecessor really made a lot of use of the volunteer energy and internships that are there, and Administrator Mokryski and Ms. Holmes are running a county-wide kind of centralized intern program, and I don't know exactly how that would work, and maybe it's just something on your to-do list, but getting a more formal relationship with the U of O, and particularly their School of Business Administration and their public administration programs, I think would really help, because as you know, you're it. There's no office of the office of the auditor. It's you. Your phone rings, you either answer it or no one answers it. So there's a real need, I think, for more energy around that. But in the meantime, before we get to that, there's certainly some volunteer and internship energy that I think would really really help. But anyway, stay away from the beavers and stay away from the nutria.
The nutria.
Yeah.
I got it.
Both. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Go duck. We're totally duck here. And don't let Mr. Dingle, who graduated from the University of Oregon Law School, he doesn't really mention that, but don't let him convince you that that there's any camaraderie. None. Yeah, it's duck oriented.
Okay.
South Eugene District.
Tell you something, it's starting to sound like Civil War in here.
That's what they call the game that'll be paid.
Oh, do they?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Wow. And I can tell you, I can definitely appreciate the intern aspect. That's how I started out in public service. So just went down, knocked on the door and said, are y'all hiring? They said, well, you want to be an intern? So I can certainly understand and appreciate that.
Yep.
Mr. Lyken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I'll express the same and welcome. Glad to have you on board. And so Commissioner Farr and I both serve on the Finance and Audit Committee, and that's the committee I personally chair, and along with Assessor Cole, so we're the voting members. And most of those reports come from staff, and we also work directly with our financial auditors as well. But do expect you to play a part and play a role in that as well, because that all coincides. So looking forward to working with you, and very pleased to have our performance auditor back on board. And of course, Commissioner Farr's our appointment to the Performance Auditing Committee. And he and I were both on the, what do we call that, originally, the interim audit? Yeah, audit committee, when we went through the entire process of trying to put together a plan for our auditor and the expectations. So looking forward to working with you.
Stay.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming to Lane County. I have a strong sense that you're going to do really well and really be beneficial to Lane County. One of the things I really have admired since we did the interview was your humor. I believe that's very important. A light heart in the realm of very serious work is not a bad thing. It's very refreshing to me. And although I couldn't possibly go toe-to-toe with Commissioner Sorensen on the comedic opportunities that arise in these settings, it is something for me to ponder. But in all seriousness, I'm very, very pleased that you're on board. I'm very impressed with your history, and just very pleased you're here. And go Ducks.
And I want to say welcome to Casey, and I hope it's okay just to call you Casey and not Dr. Creer. Nutria, by the way, are ubiquitous to the entirety of Western Oregon. They're invasive species that was imported from South America at one point. You know, it was just kind of like the emus and other various species that get imported in here where everybody was going to get rich quick raising them, and they quickly turned into a bust, and people just turned them loose, and now we have them all over. And they're actually a very invasive species and a damaging invasive species because they dig burrows into dikes and levees, and in fact in the south it's a real problem down there in Louisiana, the nutria. So we don't like nutria very much. Beavers are good though because they form habitat that improves our salmon and all the other species, and we like beavers. And
they make a darn good hat.
And my district actually includes a lot of beaver fans as you get kind of north and west of the city. The duck flavor kind of, so there is definitely a Civil War thing going on. Just got to kind of watch the ads for Guarantee Chevrolet on TV coming up to the Civil War if you want to get a flavor for that. There's definitely ducks and beavers all over this county. But yeah, we're going to have to make sure when we schedule you in for board meetings, and we also have Commissioner Sorensen here, that we have adequate stock of Depends for some of us, because the two of you are going to keep us laughing. It just I appreciate your humor, but I really appreciate your background and what you're bringing to the role, and I appreciate the fact that we're filling this critical role. We only have 3 direct employees at the commissioners, and we have the administrator, we have our county counsel, and we have the performance auditor. And the performance auditor piece is so critical to our transparency for the citizens, that they know we've got somebody that doesn't answer to the administrator, that's looking into programs and how they're doing and making recommendations outside of that process directly to the board, is really critical. But it's also just about improving the whole organization. And I think you understand that role, that you're not there for a gotcha and a headline. We're really about working together and just improving the efficiency of Lane County, along with the trust and transparency of the citizens in our organization. We can't be successful in that strategic plan without that trust.
Right.
And I think you're part of building that trust. So I really appreciate that you're on board now, drinking out of that fire hose.
Yeah.
And eventually we'll get you settled down and on the work plan and starting your first audits, and look forward to the results of those.
Yes, sir.
And just one last for Commissioner Sorensen. I will note that you have made an excellent choice of where to live. North Eugene, as I understand. Very well chosen. And one last thing, there are 2 school districts in Eugene.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Got it.
I just wanted to make a comment on a more serious note. I want to make a comment about the performance auditor and your role with the board. I think that each of the commissioners, we all have individual districts, we have our own individual backgrounds. I think out of all that should come a public good in terms of decision making, and your main point of contact around here really is with the committee. And the committee is broadly based. Committee includes a lot of people with different backgrounds, and I think that their guidance for what you're doing is kind of your day-to-day thing. And the commissioners that are on the committee, their role is to kind of help that committee and make sure that things get done. Having said that, you are an appointee of the Board of Commissioners, and that the commissioners, the 3 commissioners that aren't on the committee, we have a big interest in what you're doing, and we have a big interest in making sure that our perspective is known and understood at the point where the committee's made a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, and then we have to take a look at it. So, there can be a tendency, I think, on the part of the performance auditor to, every day you go to work, well, who am I supposed to check in with? Well, the committee and what the committee wants me to be doing. But I just want you to keep in the back of your mind that they're making recommendations ultimately to the Board of Commissioners about what the plan is and what you're going to be doing. And obviously your input to the committee and to the board is really crucial because you're the guy that's really going to have to do all this stuff. But I just point that out, that is a part of the challenge with this position. Yeah.
Well, thank you again for agreeing to be our employee, and look forward to a long and productive working relationship with you. And welcome to Lane County, and go Ducks, go Beavs. You're in Oregon now.
Yeah.
No Aggies here.
No. No. Can't have that.
But you know what rivalries are coming out of Texas.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I got a fellow Mav up there, so.
Yep, fellow Mav.
Here we go.
And I tell people that the Civil War is pretty cool, but you've never seen anything until you see a Texas-Oklahoma game. That is because the stadium is split. Oklahoma and Texas fans, and right down the middle. It is crazy. So anyway.
There we go.
Well, thank you very much. So with that, I'd like to move us into executive session. And we'll go into executive session, and then we'll recess for our lunch break and come back out in a public session at 1:30. So the Board of County Commissioners will meet in executive session to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions. This executive session is held pursuant to ORS 1926602E, which allows the Board of Commissioners to meet in executive session for the purposes listed. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. We will be coming back out in a public session at 1:30. At the strike of the gavel, we are going to recess up to the Board of County Commissioners conference room and reconvene in executive session.